All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Judicial Proceedings Committee. Today is Thursday, April 4th, 2024. We are on voting list number 28. Before we start, I want to wish Senator Folden a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Senator Folden. Hey. All right. We're going to start off with House Bill 230, sorry, 230.
House Bill 230 is a departmental bill that authorizes the Motor Vehicle Administration to access and issue copies of death certificates and set and collect corresponding fees. So this is the cross file to Senate Bill 267, which the Senate passed with a clarified technical amendment to fix some omissions, to add some references that should have been in the bill. The House has already passed the Senate bill, so I would recommend amending this House bill to conform to the Senate bill.
So the motion's been seconded. Is everyone okay? Adopting, all right.
No, I'm good.
All right, now the bill is before you as amended. Is everyone okay being recorded in the affirmative? Yeah. House Bill 230, all right. Okay. All right, we're now going to move on to House Bill 2. That was House Bill.
It was right under it.
Yeah, House Bill 249.
House Bill 249 is a departmental bill. The bill alters the circumstances in which a DNA sample must be collected and stored in the statewide DNA database system within the Department of State Police Crime Laboratory. The bill also.
All right, sorry, we're not. Yeah, my bad. This one is not coming up.
To the Senate cross file for 387. So this should be moved favorable. Yes.
All right, we're going to move House Bill 387. Is the motion for favorable? It's been seconded. Is everyone okay being recorded in the affirmative? Okay, we're now going to move on to House Bill 1034.
Oh,
All right, we have House Bill 967.
House Bill 967 prohibits a person from parking certain vehicles in the town of Keedysville, Washington County. However, the restrictions do not apply if the parking of the vehicle is essential to its immediate use. Additionally, the bill does not apply to specified Class A passenger or Class E truck vehicles. And finally, the bill establishes more stringent enforcement requirements for certain types of vehicles and for vehicles parked for multiple days.
This been a motion for a favorable on House 967. It's been seconded. Is everyone okay being recorded in the affirmative?
Yes.
1032.
That may be the one they're talking about. House Bill 1032 codifies and alters the tourist area and corridor signage program administered by the State Highway Administration, requiring the SHA to administer the program in collaboration with the Department of Commerce.
It's a motion for a favorable. Seconded. Is everyone okay? Everyone's okay recorded in the affirmative? House Bill 1032 passes unanimously. House Bill 1034.
House Bill 1034 increases from 1 to 3 the number of assistant sheriffs required to be appointed by the Baltimore City Sheriff, and authorizes the Baltimore City Sheriff to appoint social workers and any additional sworn or civilian personnel that are funded by the sheriff's operating budget or by any other funding source.
All right, motion is for a favor. Well, Senator Carr, do you have a motion? All right, I'll second. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, House Bill 1034 passes unanimously. House Bill 1166.
Senate Bill 1166 authorizes the State Highway Administration in conformance with federal law to issue a permit for an outdoor sign along or near a scenic byway located on a federal aid primarily highway in Frederick County if certain requirements are met.
All right, there's been a motion for a favorable and seconded. Is everyone okay being recorded in the affirmative?
Yes.
All right. Shamari, can we pull up House Bill 1397?
House Bill 1397 alters certain provisions of law prohibiting discrimination based on certain protected characteristics to include prohibitions on discrimination based on sexual orientation, gender identity, race, religious beliefs, marital status, and disability. There are no amendments. And we have the Senate bill too.
Thank you. I had a question about this bill earlier. It was just unfamiliar to me that we would use the term religious beliefs where the Constitution and most other portions of big documents just say religion. But I was made aware that we in fact do use the phrase religious beliefs frequently throughout other portions of the code. And I appreciate those who brought that to my attention, and I'm comfortable with the bill.
In particular, Senator Lamb brought, that was good. Did
Yep,
a good job with that. So I'd like to make a motion for a favorable. Seconded. Is everyone okay being recorded in the affirmative? All right, House Bill 1397 is now off to finance as they are secondary on this.
We just passed HB 1397, so but I wanted to make certain that we were also passing Senate Bill 590 as cross file.
I'll seek counsel. Is it identical?
It's, the only difference is the title. The Senate version has Equal Opportunity for All Marylanders Act within the title.
We amend the title.
Yeah.
Make it identical to the House.
Yeah, it's a courtesy.
Got it. All right. Yeah. All right. So the motion is, and we'll just make a motion to change the title for the Senate bill.
So moved.
You can
Okay.
conform it to the house.
Or conform it to the House, and we'll move it. So motion for favorable as amended.
Yes.
All right, everyone's okay. All right,
SB
all right, we're gonna go to House Bill 330. Sorry, 338.
House Bill 338 establishes requirements, procedures, and prohibitions to govern the use of facial recognition technology by law enforcement agencies. This is the cross-file of Senate Bill 182, which has currently been returned to the committee for a concur, not concur. The differences between the bill that we have, the House bill and the Senate bill as passed by the Senate, is that the House added a provision providing that the bill preempts any local law governing facial recognition technology. The House also struck from their version of the bill a part of the annual reporting requirement for law enforcement agencies, which in the Senate bill was slightly modified instead of being struck.
I wanted to make a motion to strike the preemption. That was something that came on at the last minute and was not discussed and not agreed upon by everyone that I worked with.
I'll second that. Is everyone okay with that amendment? Okay. Further discussion?
The reporting should have been, I think what we added was incorrect. So it should have been in the form that the Maryland State Chiefs and Sheriffs Association had requested.
So this would be conforming that part of the House bill to Senate Bill 182 as we passed it.
Correct.
Reporting requirement, yep.
Thank you. Do we need to second that?
I'll second that. Is everyone okay with that?
Everybody's all right.
All right, now the bill's before you as amended. Further discussion? All right.
I move the bill.
Senator Sinner has moved the bill. I'll second it. Is everyone okay being recorded in the affirmative? Okay, excellent.
We have the concur.
You want to pull it up?
Right, so this is Senate Bill 182, It's passed by the Senate, establishes the requirements, procedures, and prohibitions, and as I just mentioned, the House amendments mainly add the preemption language. So since we just moved the House bill differently, I would recommend not concurring.
All right. Motion not to concur. Okay. Everyone's okay?
Okay, who
Alright.
do you want to be on the conference committee?
Yeah, so we do Sidnor, who else? McKay and who? All right, so Sidnor is chair. McKay and Senator Carter. Yeah. Gonna do Shamari, I think you got the next two, 1308. And then 432. But let's go 1308.
House Bill 1308 prohibits a person from recording a deed or other instrument that the person knows contains false information. It establishes a 3-year limitation on when a prosecution for a violation of the act may be commenced. It establishes a fine not exceeding $500 for a violation of the act, and authorizes a court to award certain costs and attorney's fees in an action to quiet title if the action or a defense to an action is based on the alleged recordation of a deed containing false information.
Now for limitations period, we have longer for fraud, and we are talking about intentionally putting false information in a deed for recordation, which could be like in perpetuity.
So I'm not sure the rationale, but the crime established by the section is a misdemeanor, so. And there's no jail time associated. Yes.
All right, so motions for a favorable. It's been seconded. Is everyone okay being recorded in the affirmative?
Yes, that's
HB.
That's HB House Bill. All right,
And then we're gonna go back to Shamari for.
okay, so everyone's okay being recorded in the affirmative. All right, so now we're gonna go House Bill 432.
House Bill 432 makes technical corrections by replacing references to mental retardation with references to an intellectual disability in certain provisions of law.
Motions for a favorable, seconded. Everyone's okay being recorded in the affirmative. Okay. We're gonna go to House Bill 810, and then we are then going to go to Senate Bill 949.
House Bill 810 alters the defined term rapid fire trigger activator to be rapid fire activator and expands the definition of rapid fire activator to include a switch or auto sear for purposes of existing prohibitions and penalties. A switch or auto sear means a device that applies force to a firearm's trigger bar to prevent it from limiting the weapon from firing only one round each time the trigger is depressed. There is one amendment in your voting packet. It is, if I can find it. Amendment 333-525/1. This is for House Bill 810, and it is Amendment 333-525/1. It would provide that nothing in this section is intended to prohibit the otherwise lawful possession of a part or combination of parts by A police officer or other person employed by a law enforcement agency under circumstances in which the officer or other person possesses the part or parts in accordance with authorization given by the law enforcement agency, or a person who has registered a machine gun with the Secretary of State Police under Section 4-403 of this title, if the part or parts are possessed for use in only and necessary for the proper function of a machine gun that is currently registered by the person under 4-403 of this title. It's that MSP and apparently other law enforcement agencies in the state do use weapons that are select fire or can select fire between 3-round bursts and fully automatic for their tactical teams. My understanding is that inside of those weapons is a component called an auto sear, which would meet the definition under the current law. So it's a part, but I mean, all of these things are removable and interchangeable, right? So the part would still technically qualify.
And what we're trying to do is make certain that the public isn't going out. That's right. Want to create automatic.
But
That's
the,
right.
but
For
the
the-
SWAT team's cool.
They use automatic, they use it.
So, MSI had in one of their reprints said MSI would not be opposed to the bill if it amended the change to existing Maryland definition of machine gun is incorporated the federal definition. Did that do that or not?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. I just,
Yeah.
just asked for clarity.
This is a different issue that some law enforcement brought up.
Understood, but it anyhow, thank you.
I'd like to move the amendment. Is everyone okay with that? All right, now the bill's before you as amended. Motion. You just want to speak?
I'm just,
Okay, got it. Motion's for favorable. Second, and so
yeah, I'm down.
Is 737. Page 370. Have you texted everybody? Yeah.
Senate Bill 949, right? Who's that? That's Jamie. Let me read this in. And then after you read it in, I'm gonna speak on.
Senate Bill 949 generally prohibits the sale or distribution of a self-administered sexual assault evidence collection kit with a violation deemed as an unfair, abusive, or deceptive trade practice under Maryland Consumer Protection Act, or the MCPA. And it would be subject to MCPA civil and criminal penalty provisions. The bill also specifies that evidence indicating the physical evidence of a sexual crime was obtained using the specified prohibited materials is not admissible in a criminal or civil proceeding involving the allegation of a sexual crime, and establishes the Forensic Nurse Examiner Training Grant Program and associated special fund administered by GOCAP.
There's been a lot of attention on this bill, and I know we had a pretty good debate about it. For me, I we'll just have a discussion now and leave it to the wisdom of the committee. I'm still, look, obviously I want folks that go through this experience to have access to, a wellness exam and to go through, I guess, all formal proper channels to make sure that they're getting the help and the support that they need, and that the perpetrator is, there's evidence collected that can be used in a subsequent, criminal proceeding if it's necessary, and if that person, survivor, chooses to move forward with that stuff. So on one side of the ledger, you've got, that this is an extremely unreported crime, and a lot of folks don't go to seek a wellness exam, which they should. And in an ideal world, we want that to happen. And so on the one side of the ledger, you have an option here that, provides something. And I'm not sure in terms of the issues that were brought up by some of the state's attorneys in their testimony about chain of custody issues that, whether it goes off to a lab and whether that would be admitted into evidence. Obviously, the bill says that if you had a kit from out of state, it would still fall under the normal rules of evidence if you tried to enter it in. And so I'm completely I just want this whole thing to work. You know what I mean? And I don't know the answer. And so that's one side. And then on the other side of the ledger, it's, look, I don't want this to descend in some sort of a deceptive false hope that people may think is going to be preserved and going into evidence necessary, that's going to, whatever DNA or evidence that's collected will necessarily go into evidence in a subsequent criminal proceeding if they want to. I mean, I don't know. I'm completely torn on this. But I think it's incumbent upon us to have a full discussion about this issue before moving forward and make a decision. So I'd leave it to the committee and would open it up just for discussion for you all to talk about this, because I think we all have the same end goal. I'm not sure here personally. And I certainly don't want survivors to have false sense of hope, but I also want to make sure that survivors have options. So I'll just open it up for that discussion. So I'll start off with Senator Kelly and then Senator McKay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's so funny, I put my light on because I've spent all session telling you I didn't want to talk about this bill because it's really hard for me. But I wanted to talk first and make sure the committee knows that I'm actually our committee's representative on the Sexual Assault Evidence Kit Funding and Policy Committee that the Senate sponsor of this bill also serves on, and they have done really tremendous work, such important work. I never wanted to be put on that committee. I think I've told everybody on this committee the last thing I want to do is sexual assault bills. It's a nightmare for me. But I got put on that committee and I'm on that committee, and I want to tell you this is the work product of that committee. And I am supporting it because it is the work product of that committee. So I want to support the bill with no amendments. That being said, that's my preference, and I understand we're having a conversation. And I wanted to contribute this to the conversation because I had an epiphany last night. And it's weird because here we are, and I see Senator Muse here and Senator McKay here. They're very religious people. I'm not a very religious person, but it was like a moment from God. I thought I've been struggling with why people don't understand the conversation around this bill is so different for so many different people. I grew up, I have a high ACEs score. We were in the women's caucus one year and we did our ACEs. What is, what formed you? And they're like, raise your hand if you had one, wave your hand if you had two. My hand stayed up, right? I have a really high ACEs score. I interact with authority different than other people do. I had a really traumatic experience when I was young, and I had a terrible, terrible rape exam at a hospital. The exam was worse for me than the rape in terms of the trauma. And so for me, interacting with this bill is hard. And I don't trust the criminal justice system. I just don't. That's just my experience as an individual, lived individual. I don't generally, and this is not a reflection on Senator Folden, who's such a champion on sexual justice issues, but I don't trust the police or the prosecutors. I think there's so much victim blaming and shaming in the process. And the first time I was raped, I went through it. The second time I was raped, I didn't go anywhere near the system. And I learned in the research for my bill last week, and I don't have a citation for this because I don't have the source, but what I learned was, so don't ask me, maybe I'll find the source if you're interested, but of the people who don't report, 1 in 5 white women don't report, 1 in 15 Black women don't report. And these are the issues that we talk about on this committee all the time, right? How do different people experience the criminal justice system? And anyway, I wrote all of this in notes because I wanted to convey my thoughts, right? I completely understand why the founder created this company for those reasons that I'm describing for you. And it, for me, the reason I'm supporting this is that I want to be at a place of hope, right? I want to be at a place of hope that we have improved the system so much since I went through that experience. I know for a fact that our safe nurses are amazing. I know that for a fact, and I've worked with them on this committee and for many years, and I love what they do. And this legislation is coming from inside the system, and I want it to work. So the last notes I wrote were, you know, they're a part of the making things better, right? Moving us closer towards justice, ending, you know, making it easier for people to be able to report and for victims to find justice. But for me, you know, voting for this bill is a leap of faith. And I can understand why other people might not be at that place. So that's where I am. And I'm sorry to take such a long conversation about this, but I think it's an important bill. And I think that the work of the Sexual Assault Evidence Kit Funding and Policy Committee is really meaningful. I wanted to tie together, I wanted to say publicly what I have experienced in working on all sorts of different legislation over 14 years, right? That your social location can really determine how you see policy. And that's one of the things that makes it amazing to work on this committee, because we struggle with these things. So I want to thank the whole committee for doing that with me for 2 years, but also just, you know, I hope we move this bill, but with an understanding that we all see things differently.
Thank you for saying that. It's really, I know it's tough to talk about it, but that was really well said. So thank you. Senator McKay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, this debate, discussion, goes further than this one bill. And my line of thought process makes me think of other things that we've talked about. And so, look, heard the testimony of the proponents, appreciate the group coming together for feeling what they think is the right way forward on this product. But one of the things that I found is, like, each victim, each person, family member, they're all individual and how it all affects them. So is there really one size fits all one? And it boils down, when I met with the founder, it boils down to choice. And which is the best way for that victim to go forward? Is it through what we hear the courts would say would be the best way? Or for those victims who don't trust the system but still want some form of closure? And the reason that I say it makes me wonder, you know, everyone knows where I am on abortion. But I'm telling you, choice, it matters. And what may be right for me or the way I believe may not be right for another. And I think we need to really take that into consideration with this bill, that there is a possibility that while the work group or coalition or the group that came up with a way, that's not always the way. And we probably need to look at, I understand there's an amendment that has been, I think that takes into the concerns of all. And I just think that we ought to talk about that amendment after, and it would be my recommendation to pass this only if this amendment is included. Thank you.
I'm so very proud that I worked with each of you. You worked very hard, and we get some of the most emotional issues that there are. We get them here, and it's our pleasure to serve our citizens on even these issues. Just a question that I had, and I want to ask Senator Kelly, you said, if 1 in 15 Black women don't report rape, wouldn't these kits be a possible benefit to them for their own personal satisfaction?
Yeah, Senator Muse, that's, you know, I'm not in a position where I brought that point up because I think that this is the kind of thing that we think about in this committee.
Correct.
Different people experience things differently. And if 14 out of 15 Black women don't feel comfortable using the system, we have to talk about that. Right?
Right, correct.
So you make a good point.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's surprising. Who would have thought 3 months ago that this bill at the very end of the session would be one of the most hotly contested bills before us. It comes as a surprise to me, but there it is. I've been in the last 24 hours approached by all sorts of people who want to talk about this bill. And this amendment was shown to me this morning, and I think it's the best way to go. We're late in session. We don't have the time to delve more deeply into this and go into all the ins and outs. And the amendment that I've seen basically says that we should amend the bill to give the Attorney General the power to promulgate regulations which would govern the use of these kits in Maryland. And I'm confident the Attorney General will approach that job seriously. And will come to a decision we might not all agree with, but at least it will be a considered decision, which the Attorney General feels is in the best interest of everyone in Maryland. I think that's the way to go. I've got a copy of the amendment here. Nobody's offered it, but so if nobody does, I'm happy to do it. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure I have that amendment, but there was an earlier amendment, but I'd been advocating for regulation rather than banning. And that's really just to step back, look at the state of Maryland, generally how we deal with products. And I would rather us go into a regulatory scheme that is such a high bar that probably the current kits are not going to meet that bar for some technical reasons. But I do understand that this is not just any product, it's an intersection with an assault or crime. So that may make it a little different, but I do want to say that I too am extraordinarily troubled by the number of girls and women who don't come forward. And it's, you know, if it's could be incest, and how does a young girl deal with that? Maybe a kit that she could self-administer would give her some comfort, because she will never, ever go to the police because it will blow up her family, or she'll have to get out of the house first. So, you know, the gold standard is for women to report and go through the full forensic exam. But I'm just going to recount one personal story. I came home from college and hanging out with a male friend that I'd known for a long time. In the course of the evening, we're young, because I'd left to go to college early. We pick up a guy that I knew from a distance and really didn't hold in high regard, but I didn't think much of him. And then we picked up a girl. This girl is someone I had gone to high school with, and I would call her an invisible girl. She was quiet. She didn't have money. She wasn't smart. And, you know, she wasn't a lot of things. And I thought the evening was fine. We drove around, dropped everybody off later. But several years later, that young woman called me and said, "Do you remember that evening that we were out together?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I was raped." And I said, she goes, "And you might be my lifeline to this." I was so shook because, first of all, I was in close proximity and did not realize what was going on. And she recounted a lot of the facts, which I won't go into here, but the point is, she wasn't sure. I mean, she didn't use the word rape. She was really victim blaming. really feeling bad that she had not resisted, hadn't yelled out, so somebody not too far away could have jumped in and protected her. And when this bill came up, she's exactly the young woman who is afraid of the police, has no self-confidence, is not sure of everything that happened that night, except that she knows she was violated. That's how she feels strongly. And yet she's, with the law, look at her like that. What did she do wrong? Right? So I think Senator Kay made an interesting it's a matter of choice. But we also have the intersection of the dealing with a kit that also can intersect with a crime. So I have not seen that amendment, but I've been advocating for all week that we create very strong regulations, which we can't do before the end of session. And then look at those regulations, whether we put them in statute or not, or just have them in regulations. So that's the approach I'd like, and I'd love to see that amendment, but I'm not sure I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator James. Senator Folden and then Senator West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just, unfortunately, in some ways, because I look at things through the lens of right and wrong, lawful, unlawful, I have removed a lot of the emotional side of things. And I always, so I see things differently, I guess. I'm not saying, I hear everybody's concerns, and I'm grateful that everybody has, their own experiences that brings us all together and allows us to have this discussion. I just want to I want to be very clear on the one, there's a couple points. One is, I hope my daughters never have to go through something like this. I can tell you that I've been involved in these investigations. Unfortunately, I can tell you that the safe exams and the safe nurses and the staff at these facilities now have their procedures, their techniques for evidence collection have evolved dramatically, even in the past 10 years, on how they process these crimes. Because of the emotional and the victim shaming and the emotional trauma that is also accompanied with the physical assault. I think it's important, though, that we remember that the reason we had this work group that was put together was they're looking at things from a very legal lens. And that lens is important because if we are going to look, the ultimate goal should be to hold people accountable for these wrongdoers. I understand that the idea of a choice that may make people feel better, or some people feel better, but sometimes those same people feel like the kit that they're doing to themselves is admissible in court, and it's just not. It interferes with the criminal investigation. And I think that is something that should be very worrisome for all of us, that not only do they get violated once, but they think they're going to have this kit and that they're going to be able to do this self-exam and preserve this evidence that is not admissible. And then when they find that out, that's re-victimization. So I think that these products should only, that's the concern that I have, is I look at things through a very legal lens. I want the accountability of those predators, those wrongdoers, to be held accountable and be charged and convicted and have successful processes in place that minimize the invasiveness of the exam while giving and moving the needle forward for a proper adjudication of these crimes. Because the victims, we don't want to silence the victims more, and these kits, in a way, have the potential of silencing them more because they're not admissible. If the AG finds that there's some other technique available, I think it's something to revisit when the technology becomes available that it does meet the standard. of criminal law admission, but it's not there. And these create an obstacle and actually re-victimize the victims in some cases. And I think that's enough that we should understand that we want to protect the process and keep it in place. So with that, I would just urge, as we continue to rebuild the partnership between the community and law enforcement and have these discussions, that trust building is two-way, and this is an important component that we've got to allow the process of the law to evolve and unfold. So thank you.
Thanks. Oh, look, we are gonna pick this up again. I have to hold this for now, and we're gonna call the voting session. But look, this is a really tough issue, and this is really quality debate. And on a tough issue, everyone's been extremely thoughtful and taking a hard look at this. And so we're going to continue this when we get off of the floor, but I really just want to thank the committee for the thoughtfulness, because this isn't easy. So, all right, with that, I'll see you all on the floor, and we'll come back out to floor to vote.